here we have BCN rankings. Now, this is done by a company that looks at about 40% of Japanese retailers. So it's a small sample size, but as far as sample sizes go, 40% isn't that small. It's a decent size, but it is just looking at the Japanese market. And sometimes I get asked these questions. Does this information contradict previous data points? And not really. You got to remember, where does the data come from and what story are they trying to tell? You can have the same data point and draw different conclusions. But what we're seeing clearly, and let's take a look at these images here, we can clearly see that mirrorless is continuing its dominance. DSLRs, it's not going to make a comeback. This is not going to be Rocky IV. Mirrorless is taking over. It's currently right around 70% of the market share. And if we go to the next slide, what is pretty evident here is, well, how well Sony is performing in that mirrorless space, and they're just running away with it. Sony's performing very, very well. I believe that Sony E-mount represents about 20% of market share. Then you've got Tamron at 14.2, Canon very close at 13.3, which is quite a considerable feat, considering Canon wasn't even a mirrorless on the full frame until late, very late in 2018. And of course, we have OMD, that's OM Digital, formerly Olympus. I feel like I'm talking about Prince here, at 12.5%. I wouldn't try to overly read into them. So one very clear thing is mirrorless is continuing to dominate, and really that shouldn't be a surprise. And that Sony is number one in mirrorless also shouldn't be a surprise, because, well, Sony was one of the first ones to come out with a mirrorless camera. And they were so early that it was largely panned, and people are going like, what's Sony doing in this field? They don't know anything. Well, Sony has gone ahead and proven that they do know what they're doing and are doing quite well. So as I'm going to open this one up, Conrad, what do you think of these numbers, and what do you think of these market share reports in general?
I think the Japanese tend to be very loyal to Japanese brands, so you're going to find Japanese brands are very well represented there. When Samsung came to the camera market, the Japanese retailers really didn't buy into it, and Samsung had a very rough time entering the camera market there, as they did in North America. Tamron is, I was surprised to see Tamron doing so well there, where Tamron has such a weak presence in Canada compared to Sigma. But it does go to reflect the huge investment that Sigma has made in lens technology and marketing properly in Canada, and also supporting the Canadian market. The Tamron distribution didn't have the support, and for the longest time, Tamron lenses were actually cheaper to buy from Amazon in the United States and import them across the border. So it was nice to see Tamron up there, but Sony is continuing to march forward. I don't see anything to stop Sony just completely breaking through whatever hills are in front of it. It's just going to roll right over them.
Yeah, Conrad, I'm really curious here. And you know what? I'll probably get slammed. I got slammed in the last video for being tough on Canon, and I should just give back my gear. This person, I don't think they understand how markets work. And once you buy something, companies generally don't want to take it back. And of course, there's depreciation. But do you think it's possible that Sony might be able to become the king of the market within the next 5 to 10 years?
To be honest, we had a Sony rep come around when I worked at Henry's about a decade ago, and he said Sony's going to become one of the big three. And at the time, we laughed.
Yeah, yeah.
And we look at ourselves now. We're like, he was so right. Sony came out with a plan. Canon also has a plan. Yeah. They took a long time to come out with the right sensors. They lagged on DSLR sensors for the longest time because Sony low light technology was just so blowing Canon out of the water for the longest time. But Canon developed the right mount. They've got lens technology that is absolutely excellent. They've got an exciting lineup. I think Canon is here to stay. It's going to be a 2-horse race between Sony and Canon.
That's a very good point, Conrad. For the amateur photographer in the room, John. No, I never asked. What do you shoot? You shoot with Canon, do you?
I shoot Canon. I've been shooting Canon since going back to film days. It's not so much of a matter of well, I guess beginning was brand loyalty, but basically Canon right now kind of fits my needs. Once I had taken a break from film and then got into digital DSLRs in the last decade or so, you know, Canon was a brand I was familiar with, and they made stuff that I liked, so I kind of went with them, and I've stayed with them since. Um, I found an article that has this chart that you're showing here, and I had a little bit of a different take for it because the text was not that deep, but I got the feeling that this was more of a lens sales chart than a body sales chart. And in that case, Tamron being as prominent
Agreed.
as it is doesn't surprise me much because
Yeah.
I mean they've been making lenses for Sony Emon for years, and Sony had opened up their mount in the beginning because they built up their mirrorless system body first as opposed to lens first, and they basically opened up their mouth to third party developers out of necessity because they didn't have that many lenses of their own. Whereas Canon kind of went about things the other way. So it doesn't surprise me that Tamron is doing that well. In fact, I know they had I guess the 28 to 75 to get really rave reviews over last year when it came out, and a couple of others for the E mount. So
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see where they are in 5 years or so when, since Nikon hasn't opened their mount, Canon hasn't opened up their mount, so Sigma and Tamron have to basically reverse engineer, lenses, especially for autofocus purposes. I would be interested to see where they are with that in 5 years. If these numbers stay true. But yeah,
I,
I do shoot Canon, and I really like Canon here. But it doesn't surprise me that Tamron's doing well, and that Sony obviously is doing well because they, got a head start in terms of mirrorless, full frame mirrorless market generally.
Yeah, very, very well put. And good catch. That's right. This article, I had to go back to, I followed several sources right back to the source and then had to use Google Translate on it, which I had to be careful too. It was very, I'll talk about that because it's another news story. But yes, you're more or less talking about mirrorless lens sales. But, I can't remember where I heard this quote, but you date the bodies, but you marry the lenses. If you
Right.
don't have a deep lens pool, then that's definitely a problem. James, I see you kind of smirking at that comment there. It's pretty lame. I know. Do you
No,
care about
no,
these
it's an
rankings?
No,
mix.
I've heard that before. It's a good one.
No. Yeah, you marry the lens, you date the bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great understanding of it. I look at this sort of like at the moment it looks very predictable. It looks like what we see at the market currently. And I think in a sort of way of who was it? Jesse Cumberledge made a comment about if Sony doesn't get an A7 IV out ASAP, that graph will look much different soon. I don't think the A7 IV specifically is going to be like the reason, but there's a lot of things that are happening right now, especially on the video side of things, that could really reshape. As John and Conrad have brought up, Canon has really came out swinging first with the glass because Canon is primarily first a lens company. Um,
Yeah.
so they still have some catching up to do, but the uniqueness of a lot of the lenses they're coming with, and now combining with the fact that there are other camera manufacturers, more specifically to the video side, one which we will get to later on in the stream, there's a lot of potential opportunities to even give unique things that Canon can benefit from, um, compared to what Sony has been having. But Sony still has strong control of this market because they know what they have an understanding of where mirrorless is going. So, but I do believe I'm with Conrad. This is a two. This is a two. As much as it's like Nikon and all these other camera, this is really
Yeah.
a two camera manufacturer race between Sony and Canon. Canon, like Sony's going to dominate for probably about another 2-3 years, but I think as Canon rolls out a lot of these RF lenses, we're starting to see more of third-party lenses from like Mikey, and there's a Rokinon. They're putting out RF lenses now, so yeah. So it's going to be very interesting as more lenses are being developed for this mount system.
Yeah.
How I think this is going to dramatically change, and it could, I think it's going to be a lot closer between Canon and Sony than what people realize with this stats, not just for lenses but for cameras as well.
I think you're right. So what we're seeing with Canon is the conversion at this point. A lot of people still stuck with Canon, as we can see with 47.2 or 49.2% as of 2020. A lot of people didn't want to switch over from that inventory. They stayed with Canon. And then when the R5 and the R6 came out, a lot of those people that were holding off on their 5Ds, and even some of them with their 1Ds, just jumped over and refreshed and got the Canon R5 and got the R6. And so we started to see sales. Canon is starting to pull back on that market share. So Canon does have still almost half the market share, and they're going to start converting people over, but still they're rather limited. We've only got really two R system bodies, the R5 and the R6. The RP and the EOS R are a little bit long in the tooth. They're not aging well. They weren't even that competitive to Sony when they first came out. Although, that being said, they were still incredible stills cameras. But what I want to do very quickly is, before I go into the next topic, I do want to say a special thanks to Stop the FOMO. We were talking earlier today about some plans, and I was talking about what I'm going to do with the channel. He was going to try to join us today because there's one topic that I know you want to talk about, James. He wanted to stop by and talk about. But FOMO, Mr. FOMO, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. And he says, don't forget to like everyone. And yeah, you know what? If you just want to sit there in your chair, relax, and watch the show, by all means, enjoy a nice frosty beverage and relax. But if you can reach that mouse, go ahead and click like and subscribe, because it really does help this channel grow. Normally, believe it or not, this is a real fact. Most of my live streams, I generally lose one subscriber, have none, or gain one. It's just not a big driver on subscribers, but I don't really care. I really enjoy this format, and I think it provides a lot more value. If you like this video, well, stay tuned. I've got more of them coming. But keep in mind, this is a pre-recorded segment from my weekly camera news live show, which is every Friday between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And if you like covering the news, and if you would like to collaborate, well, then join me live Friday nights, where you can ask questions and interact with the panelists. And panelists cover a range of the camera industry. We have photo experts and video experts. We have camera news or industry insiders. And once in a while, I have some guests from other channels, such as Jordan Drake or Dan Watson. But again, thank you so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. Please don't forget to punch that like and subscribe button, as it really does help my channel grow. We'll see you again soon.